Good morning, everybody. My name is Mike at Filmboy24. That fell down. And that's good because it reminds me, we're going to find out what's on these 4 cartridges that were sent in by a viewer. You heard me right. You see, I do a lot of found film on this channel where I get film from all kinds of sources. We don't know what's on it. It was exposed presumably years ago, and we find out what was on it because we process it and we scan it and then we show you. Well, occasionally I'll get an email from a viewer that wants to know, is there anything I can do to help them? They have some found film and they don't know what's on it. Well, that was just this case. You see, I got an email from Jim in Texas, and Jim told me for years, these 9 rolls of film have sort of been handed down, and he ended up with them when his mother passed away. Now, he didn't really know what to do with them. Everybody he kind of ran across, they weren't really willing to mess with him. So he emailed me and he said, is there anything you can do to tell me or help me determine if there's anything on these films that he believes were his grandfather's? You see, his grandfather served in the military in Germany, and these all say property of the U.S. government, which was standard for military-issued Kodak magazines. They made them specifically for the government, some of these, and they belonged to the military, and they recycled them. Well, according to Jim, he thinks that his grandfather, which this makes sense, would actually reuse these cartridges himself and possibly had a darkroom there in Germany where he would process these rolls himself. So of the 9 rolls that I had him go ahead and send me, 4 of them looked like they were completely exposed. The other 5, they were showing 3-4 feet exposed, which to me, it sort of told me that, yeah, his grandfather was probably reloading these magazines with 45 to 47 feet of film, and it's showing that a couple feet are exposed. So my guess is that the 5 on the bottom have never been exposed. Well, what about these 4? Well, that's the 4 that we are going to talk about today because they were exposed. You see, the first step was to find out what kind of film this was, because if it's Kodachrome, especially this old Kodachrome, the Kodachrome 2 or KA2, whatever it is, very difficult to get an image out of, especially this old. Well, a couple of the cartridges had very faintly, and this is not one of them, but on the top very faintly, it said Super-X, and their second X was missing. So I did some research and determined that this is probably Super-XX film, which was the predecessor to Tri-X film. And so now I needed to do some, unfortunately, you got to do some snip tests. And I say unfortunately because when you have this old stuff, you really don't want to lose any of this footage because it's valuable to the families and to me because I'm valuable. So what you got to do is you got to snip just a few inches of film from the end of the roll, and you got to sort of do some tests. And it took me a couple of days because I didn't do it continuously, but I did some snips of these rolls. And I processed an HC110B formula at about 67 degrees Fahrenheit for 5 minutes, 8.5 minutes, and finally at 15 minutes. I know that seems a little long, but Kodak recommended originally a 15-minute processing time for Super-XX film. Well, I didn't know if that was going to still sort of hold true today in 2021. So I went with all 3 to see which would work best. Well, after a couple days of tests, I determined that 15 minutes still holds true. I'm happy to say we did get some images. Now, he wasn't positive, Jim, wasn't positive what was on these rolls. For obvious reasons, they were handed down to him. He thinks possibly maybe some images of his mother and of his grandfather. Well, again, I'm happy to say we did get images. Now, we're not going to be able to, and I say we as myself and the audience, to tell who's who in the films. Hopefully Jim is, and hopefully he's happy with some of this. I know I am. I'm not sure if I mentioned it already, but he said, you settle down. That one was giving me trouble the whole 30 minutes of setup time. I don't know if I mentioned it, but Jim did tell me that his mother has since passed, as his grandfather. So he's hoping that maybe there are some images of his mom on here. I will say there is a young lady in a couple of the roles. I don't know if it's his mom. He hopefully will tell us or tell me later. I believe everything was shot at 16 frames per second. It is a black and white film. And there's 4 rolls, and I numbered the rolls, sort of my own numbering system. Whichever roll was in front of me, that got number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. They're in no particular order other than what I wrote on the film. So in that order, I'm going to show you the films. Now, film number 1, and I'll put a 1, 2, 3, 4 as I change films. I'll show them all at once. Roll number 1. About halfway through, I think he lost the loop in the camera because it's doing the classic sort of vertical jitter, very fast jitter jump about halfway through, and you'll see. Also, there's a car that you can see in roll number 1. We'll talk about that right after I show the films because I think it's going to help us date the film. Here they are. I'm pretty happy with it. Jim, I hope you're happy with it as well. I'm so ecstatic that we were able to get some images for you. The vehicle, I don't know if you guys noticed it, where the little girl was walking up past it. Looks to me like a 1950 Buick. Let me show you a comparison. Looks exactly the same to me. So we know, if I'm right, and I'm not usually, but I think I am in this case, it was at least 1950 when this was shot. Now, according to the edge code on this film, which was a square and a circle, this actual roll of film was manufactured likely in 1945. And that makes a lot of sense too, because if he's sort of loading his own cartridges, well then the film would probably sit around for a while. And black and white film really holds up well over the years, so yeah, 45 was when the film was made, and probably in the early 50s is when this film was shot. Quite obviously some sort of a military ceremony, I don't know. I didn't serve in the military, but I'm extremely thankful for everyone that did, including Jim's grandfather. And if you did serve in the military, you have my million thanks. I appreciate you more than you know. If you have anything that you would like to add about what you just saw, leave me a comment down on the bottom. What do you think about it? I'm, like I say, pretty happy with it. Now, the film is worn, it's old, it's got some issues, but overall, it's not too shabby. I hope we've done you okay, Jim. I will get your files emailed to you really quickly, if I haven't done so already, because I don't know exactly when this video is coming out. And lastly, if you have some old found film, now I'm not talking about the film that you shot yesterday out in your front yard, I'm talking about some old found film, specifically like these cartridge films or Super 8 film. 8mm tough because it's in the rolls, you know, the roll film, and a lot of times people open those cameras and blah, 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 they get exposed. So if you have a cartridge of film and you don't know what's on it, and it was exposed years ago, shoot me an email. My email is in the About section of my YouTube channel page, and we'll talk about it. As long as I can use it on my channel, I don't charge anything to process and scan it. If it's Kodachrome, it's going to be very difficult for me. I'm terrible at processing Kodachrome, old Kodachrome. If it's new Kodachrome that I shoot, or it was freshly shot, that's different. And if you like videos like this and you want to see more, I got a lot more. Do me a favor. Tap the like button. Subscribe for me if you would. And until the very next time that I see each and every one of you stunningly beautiful people, I'll see all of you on the very next go-around.